hello, and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. And as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have a real treat for you that's based in Hartford, Connecticut. It's the Charter Oak Cultural Center, and I have the pleasure of having Rabbi Donna Berman, the Executive Director, as my guest. And Donna, thanks so much for being here today. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you.
Well, we have a mutual person who said you just have to have her on. So why don't we talk about your background first? Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Was that mutual person my mother? Well, I have been at the Charter Oak Cultural Center. I'm the executive director for almost 23 years. And I'm a rabbi. And I've been a rabbi for a long, long time, for 42 years. And I had my own congregation in Port Washington on Long Island. I'm a New Yorker originally. And then I went back to school to get a PhD. And then I started working at the Charter Oak Cultural Center in 2001, right after 9/11.
Tell us about, people will hear rabbi, and you and I just talked before we went on that I said I'd probably ask you about it. How does somebody become a rabbi? What is it that you had to do to become one?
Well, after college, I went to Hebrew Union College, which is a rabbinic seminary. It's the Reform movement rabbinic seminary, because there are different movements in Judaism. And I studied for 5 years. And the first year of that study was in Jerusalem. I lived in Jerusalem for a year.
Oh my goodness. How was it to be there?
Well, it was so long ago, Moses was still around. It was wonderful. I think Israel is very different now than it was, 42 years ago, much more modernized, but it was a really wonderful experience. I met wonderful people, and I had never lived away from home for that long before, so it was a real growing experience.
Did you feel called to become a rabbi? Was that something that you thought that you would be pursuing as you were growing up?
Yeah, I wanted to be a rabbi. I have wanted to be a rabbi since I was 9 years old. In terms of child development, apparently that's a time of great spirituality for children. But when I was 9 years old, my brother is 7 years older than I am, and he was very involved in the civil rights movement and the anti-Vietnam War movement. And he really influenced me a lot. And although he was not very connected, he did not have a good Hebrew school experience. He went to a different Hebrew school than I did. But in my Hebrew school, we were learning about social justice. We were talking about current events. And I just thought that being a rabbi was a way to make the world a better place. And that's what I really wanted to do.
How did you find your way to the Charter Oak Cultural Center? What are some of the things that you did as you got out of college?
Well, so after I left rabbinic school, I had my own congregation in Port Washington, New York for 12 years, and then I decided to go back for my PhD, and I studied at Yale Divinity School, first for a master's degree, and then I went back to Drew University, which is where I got my undergraduate degree. And I got my doctorate there, and then I was kind of watching the flowers grow and trying to figure out what I was going to do with this degree. And it's kind of a convoluted story, but the basic gist of it is, it was the hand of God that led me to the Charter Oak Cultural Center. I had never heard of it. I was kind of new to Connecticut, and they were not looking for an executive director. So the odds were against me taking this job. And basically, the institution was not doing very much. They were kind of in a time of flux, shall we say. The building was pretty much empty. They didn't have an executive director. And I, by happenstance, met the acting director. And we had this wonderful conversation. He said, "Why don't you come down and have lunch with me?" And then he said to me, "Would you be the executive director?" And because they were going to do a nationwide search. And because this kind of happened so suddenly, they made me the interim director. I was hired, I'll tell you about the day I was hired, but anyway, I was hired in September, and by Thanksgiving Day announced that I was going to be the really permanent director. It's been 23 years. But so I had they really vetted me. I had a million interviews. They asked me for 9 references. I asked them, I said, do you know the number for rent-a-reference? Who knows 9 people? But I had my final interview on a Friday, and it was, I think it was my 7th interview with different people, stakeholders in the community. And they told me that they were going to discuss my candidacy, and they would let me know later that day. So later that Friday, they called me and they said, we want to offer you the job. And all of a sudden, and I was just about to say, oh my God, that's so great. But I heard my father's voice in my head, and he said, he would always say to me, listen, just take a job. You have to tell them, I'll tell you in a couple of days, I have to think about it. You want to make sure you're really calm and you don't kind of give yourself away. So I said to him, you know what, I'll thank you so much for the offer. I'll let you know. And for whatever reason, I said on Tuesday. And that Tuesday was 9/11.
Oh my.
So I called the Charter Oak Cultural Center and I said, I left a message on their answering machine, this is how long ago it was, and I said, I don't want today to go down in history as the day I accepted this job. I'll tell you tomorrow. And that's when I started. I started a week later.
Now, people will probably say, I've never heard of the Charter Oak, Cultural Center. So why don't we take a moment and talk about it? Tell us what it's all about.
Well, we are a multicultural arts center doing the work of social justice through the arts. You can see the impact of my brother and my Hebrew school education in our focus. And so we do all kinds of performances, multicultural performances, and professional. And we never turn anybody away who can't afford a ticket. And we have a school for 1,000 Hartford students. It's an art school. It's called City School of the Arts, and it's completely free. Everything is free. The instruction, the materials, the instruments, the art supply, whatever it is, everything is free. And then we have 3 programs for the homeless community. We started Connecticut's first street paper. Street paper is a newspaper written by people in the homeless community. And we started, and that's called Beat of the Street, so it's BOTS. And then we started a thing called Eats of the Street, where we put pots of organic vegetable plants on the streets of Hartford, and anybody in need can pick the vegetables for free when they're ripe. And we hire and train people in the homeless community to take care of the pots, and we have local artists paint the pots. So we always say that Eats of the Street is food, jobs, and art for Hartford.
Now,
and then our building is historic. Our building is the first synagogue built in Connecticut. So we are just actually going through a building project, and we're very grateful to the state of Connecticut for supporting our project. And we bought the building next door, and we're renovating and refurbishing the synagogue and the building next door, which actually is older than the synagogue. The synagogue was built in 1876. The building next door was built in 1858. It was the home of the mayor of Hartford in mid-1800s. And this is going to enable us to enroll an additional 250 students in our City School of the Arts.
Now, when you're saying synagogue, I'm thinking of a place to gather. Is there a place to gather church may be the wrong thing to say, but is there a place to gather for service besides being a cultural arts center?
That's such a good question. The sanctuary, which is where worship would have taken place when it was a synagogue, is our performance space. And sometimes people come and do rituals there of all kinds. But the sanctuary is our performance space. It can seat about 200 people. And we wanted to renovate it so that we could, not the sanctuary is remaining the same, but the downstairs, so we have more classrooms. Now with the additional building, we have more classrooms. But we found out in the course of the architect evaluating the building that the sanctuary is actually moving this way. The walls are moving out. So that's all going to be corrected. So this capital project is not only going to help so many children, but it's also going to refurbish this really, really, truly beautiful building that is a jewel in Hartford and in the state of Connecticut. It's just gorgeous. It's actually shaped like an open Torah. the
Now,
face of it is a pictorial.
you're mentioning Hartford as well as the state of Connecticut. Can other individuals throughout the state come there and participate in your programs?
Yes, our school is for local children in the Hartford area. But if somebody wanted to drive to us, we would certainly evaluate their application. And by the way, there's no tuition, and and nobody has to try out there are no auditions. So, but yes, and our performances draw people really from all over New England.
Now, the Cultural Arts Center, was it that way when you came in 23 years ago? How long has it been around? What's its mission?
Well, our mission now is to do the work of social justice through the arts, but that's something that I brought to it. It's interesting. The building was saved in the 80s by a group of Jewish people who found out that the building was going to be destroyed. It was empty, and the city was slated for destruction. And so they raised $750,000. This actually was in the late 70s to save the building. It was a lot of money then. It's a lot of money now. And they managed to save the building, but it was really in disrepair. And then in the 80s and the early 90s, they were able to do some of the repairs, but it really needs a facelift, shall we say. And that's what it's getting now. It's going to be preserved for many, many years to come and be kind of a state-of-the-art performance space, and all the stained windows have been there. That already has happened. All of them have been restored, and it's really just it's like watching a photograph develop in the darkroom. All these exciting things are happening.
What's going to happen in the building that's next door when that's going to be taken care of as well?
Well, we're going to move our offices from the synagogue building to, and by the way, the building is the original home of Congregation Beth Israel in West Hartford, which is a really iconic synagogue. We're going to move our offices to the new building and make the bottom floor classrooms. And then in the back of the building, in fact, this happened yesterday. There was this really beyond dilapidated garage, and they just took it down yesterday. So everything is moving along, and we're going to build a barn-like structure there, and that's going to be our piano lab. The kids in our school have never had dedicated space. They've only been limited to the one building, and everything was used for multi-purposes. And now they're going to have their own dedicated classrooms, and they're going to have this beautiful piano lab, and the whole front of it is going to be glass. And it's going to open up. So in the summer, there's a parking lot there. In the summer, they can have performances, and they'll be protected, and people can sit in the parking lot and enjoy their music.
Now, when you're saying performances, are you offering different types of classes for these children? What are the age groups that these participants can be a part of?
Ages 6 through 18.
Okay, and you're mentioning piano. Are there art classes and other things that they can do there?
Yeah, we have visual art classes. We have dance and theater, and we have ballet. We have hip hop in terms of dance, creative writing. You name it, we have it. We do it.
Now, I think that people were also touched by the fact that you mentioned the homeless. Tell us about that.
We started the first street paper in Connecticut. Remember, I'm from New York, and their street papers have been around there for a really long time. But in Connecticut, we didn't have one until 2010 when we started it. And so in other cities, people in the homeless community buy the paper for a quarter, and then they sell it on the street for $1. And we didn't want to use that model because, first of all, Hartford's not really a pedestrian town. And second of all, it really broke our heart to think of people standing on a corner selling a newspaper in, tremendous heat or in the middle of winter, 20 below zero, whatever the temperature is. So we do a little differently. People get paid for their published stories, photographs, games, whatever, word games, whatever they submit that's published. And there's a rotating editorial board of people in the homeless community who decide what goes into the paper. So anybody who gets something in the paper, they get paid for it. And then we pay people to distribute the paper throughout the city. So they'll go to libraries and churches and mosques, and they'll distribute the paper, and we pay them for that. So there's an income that comes with the paper.
Okay, let's take a break. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Supply chain problems, shipping delays, and inflation can make it even tougher to create and stick to a budget during the holidays. This means that planning ahead and knowing your spending limits are more important than ever before. Whatever you do, don't panic buy. It's never a good idea to pay more for an item than what it's worth just because it's in short supply. Before planning gifts and parties, take a look at how much you owe, including interest. Make a list of any regular expenses you need to address. Set up a separate holiday budget, dividing all holiday-related expenses into categories. That way, if you are over budget, it'll be easier to modify your lists. And speaking of lists, a detailed shopping list can be a huge help when working with a specific holiday budget. Write down each individual you plan to buy a gift for and a price range by their name, along with a few gift ideas. Now, one of Better Business Bureau's most essential tips is to keep track of your spending. That way, you'll know how much money you have left to spend, when it's okay to splurge, and when you're approaching your holiday budget. Happy shopping.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and I hope that you're enjoying the show. Well, my conversation continues on with Rabbi Donna Berman. And Donna, why don't we talk about the website, charteroakcenter.org. What will the viewer find when they visit it?
Oh, they'll find really exciting things, I think. I hope they feel that way. All of our programs, some essays that I've written, some news coverage that we've had, the classes that we offer, our calendar of events, because we do all kinds of really exciting things. So, and I think it's a pretty rich website to explore.
Now, you probably have things that are scheduled on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. How does your calendar look for 2024? What are some of the things that you would like to accomplish?
Well, we have this very exciting partnership with Agora Cultural Architects in Boston, and they are a Latinx organization. That's how they refer to themselves, and they celebrate Latinx culture. And we're doing a series of 5 events with them. We just had the first one in March, and the second one is, I think it's April 11th. I want to say, and it's a wonderful Latin jazz concert. And you can go to our website and confirm the date. And then we have our gala, which is a really fun event. Live music, Mass Confusion, which is a very popular band around here. They're our band, and that's at the Marriott on Monday, May 13th. And then at the end of May, we started something called the Ada Maria Isazi Diaz Justice Institute. And in memory of this wonderful Latina theologian, Ada Maria Isazi Diaz, we do all this community work with Latinx women. And we have lectures showcasing Latinx scholars and activists. And we have a Latinx scholar who's going to speak to us at the end of May, and that's going to be on Zoom. But many of our things are now in person. So just in the next 6 weeks or so, we have a lot of exciting things happening. But you can check us out. Oh, and we also have a program on the concert's not on April 11th. On April 11th, we have a program on Zoom. It's called Jews and Baseball. So Rabbi Rebecca Alpert's going to be with us on Zoom, and she's going to talk about the relationship between Jews and baseball, because there's actually a lot to talk about with regard to that.
Oh my goodness. Is your foundation all in the Jewish faith, or do you open it up to all types of paths?
Oh no, we're a multicultural art center. It's just a coincidence that I happen to be a rabbi, and that it's the building was originally a synagogue. We consider it a sacred place because all kinds of people come and gather there and learn about each other. We feel like the seeds of peace are planted there and grow there. It's a very warm, welcoming, I think very stimulating place. We have a beautiful gallery. Because the building's under construction, it's not open right now, but we have a beautiful gallery, and our priority is to showcase the work of artists of color. So it is absolutely, everyone is welcome there. That's the whole point of the place.
Now, social justice and the arts, what does the social justice mean to you folks there?
It means I don't like this cliche, forgive me, but it's about leveling the playing field. It's about the fact that, for example, in the suburbs, mostly everybody could afford to have private music lessons or dance lessons or whatever, and the schools provide that kind of education also. But in Hartford, that's not the case, and because the arts budgets, are just constantly, they're their first thing to go. So, and people in Hartford cannot afford to have private lessons for their kids. So we provide that. So we feel that's part of our social justice mission. In terms of our performances, no one is ever turned away for lack of funds because we believe that the arts are a human right, not a luxury. And the programming we do for the homeless community, it's, many organizations in Hartford do amazing work, and we partner with them. They do work on housing and policy. But our programming for people in the homeless community is about quality of life. It's about we have I didn't tell you, there's a third thing that we do in terms of the homeless community. We have a school called the Bott Center for Creative Learning, and it's a free school that people in the homeless community or formerly homeless people can attend. And when they complete 96 classroom hours, they graduate and are eligible for a full scholarship to Goodwin University. And we give them a laptop upon graduation. So we've been doing that for, I think this is our 10th or 11th year doing that. So we've been doing these things for a long time. How it's connected to Judaism, I said before, it's kind of coincidence. I'm a rabbi and it's a former synagogue, but I'm very motivated by the Jewish concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world. And that's our sense of social justice, that we want to repair the world. There are so many broken pieces to our world. There's so much inequity. There's so much pain and suffering that's unnecessary. And we want to give people opportunities that they otherwise might not have.
When I think about the homeless, I think about housing and food and, of course, shelter, and being able to maybe get employment, et cetera. Do you folks help them in that aspect moving forward out of becoming homeless?
Well, Deborah, that is such a good question because we find we have wonderful organizations that we work with to help people in regard to those areas. But we find that, and we started the newspaper in 2010, Beat Up the Street in 2010, so it's been 14 years. We find that people who come to us who are living, on the street or living under a bridge or whatever, every single person virtually has gotten housing. And not through us, but what we give them is a sense of belonging, a sense of self-esteem, a sense of people behind them saying, we believe in you, we care about you, you're important. And that goes such a long way. So the other pieces of their lives start to fall in place. So it's very gratifying and it's almost magical in a way. But because people, one of the things about poverty is it robs people of dreams. And I'll tell you a story. There was a young man who lived under a bridge, and every day he would go dumpster diving, and then he got an infection in his foot, which is kind of common for that kind of activity. But he still continued. He was a drug addict, and he still continued to dumpster dive. And then one day he woke up and he couldn't walk. So they took him to the hospital, and he detoxed in the course of being in the hospital for his infection. And when he got out, he was at the methadone clinic on Main Street in Hartford, which is right across from us. And he picked up Beat of the Street, a copy of our newspaper, and he read about the school, and he got really angry. He said, this is too good to be true. And we find that a lot of people say that about our programming. What do you mean everything is free? It's just, they can't imagine that anybody would do such a thing. So we came to Charter Oak, and he was really mad, and he came over to complain to the woman who runs all our programming for the homeless community. And she said, no, it's true. It's completely true. There are no strings attached. It's true. And so he went through our program, and he stayed clean. And he went through our program, and he graduated, and he went to Goodwin, and he's on his way. As far as I know, he's on his way to becoming a therapist.
That's an amazing story, truly amazing. The Cultural Arts Center itself, is it connected to other cultural arts centers throughout the state of Connecticut, or is it unique upon itself?
It's unique. I'm not aware, I'm certainly open to finding out, but I'm not aware of anybody who has the kind of policies we have about no audition, no tuition for our School of the Arts, a theater that doesn't turn people away for lack of funds. So we're very unique in that way. And with our new building, we're now going to have 1,250 students in our City School of the Arts. But I'll tell you this, Deborah, for this registration for the spring semester, we had 170 spots and we had 375 applications. So this new building, once it's done and our new building is reconfigured, we'll be able to take care of the people on our mailing list, but on our waiting list. But we are pretty convinced that it's going to grow again, and we're probably going to have to rent space elsewhere. Even with our new building, it's just growing exponentially, and we feel good that we can provide that kind of education for people who need it. But we also feel just heartbroken that we live in a culture where there's that kind of need.
When is the expansion and the restoration going to be complete?
Well, the second building that we bought next door will be done in June, and the synagogue will be completed probably by January.
Wonderful. Well, we're starting to run out of time. Any closing thoughts for the viewers?
Well, I'm just so happy to be with you, and you asked such good questions, and I so appreciate this opportunity. And everybody should come on down to the Charter Cultural Center and check out our website, because we do exciting things, and we'd love to meet you and be with you.
Well, it's been a wonderful interview, and I thank you so much for sharing all of this information. It's something new and special. We greatly appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, really.
I'm Deborah Gilbert. You have been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. In case you need to reach me, I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.